Is this cheese? Or is this? Or is it just specialized strategy? Well, whatever it is, I sit down with one of the top GM cannon rushers and find out how to play just like him.
I'm Printf, and I'm the leader of the cannon cult.
Okay, so what drove you to focus on cannon rushing specifically?
I first got into cannon rushing when I saw a Funday Monday that Day 9 did on Gulzy. He's the Icelandic cannon rusher that was very famous back in Wings of Liberty. And basically, I saw this Funday Monday and what Gulzy was doing and beating, pros. And I thought, that doesn't look too hard, I can do that. So I went on all the forums that I was on, specifically it was Leg TV and the Day 9 TV forums. And I made a thread saying I was going to cannon rush to GM, and I started streaming it. And everyone told me I was insane. Like, you're in Platinum League, you're not going to get GM off this. That's a stupid goal. And then, like a year and a half later, I proved them wrong. So
That's perfect. So what do you do to prepare for a ladder game before you play?
I don't do anything to warm up for ladder. I think the entire concept of a warm up is just fake. There's no evidence for it, for myself at least. I've been asked this before, and so I have a spreadsheet of all of my games, and so I checked my win rate in the first game of the day versus the second, third, fourth, etc. And if there's a correlation, it's actually that I win more often in my first game of the day, and I don't do any warm-up, so I think the entire thing's a myth.
Good answer. Interesting answer. What is your current hotkey setup?
So my hotkey setup is fully customized. I made it myself several years ago. It wasn't designed specifically for cannon rushing, although it functions well for that purpose. I basically took all of the abilities in the game, ranked them based on how often you use them, and then ranked all of the keys based on how easy they are to press, and just kind of lined them up. I also have a few custom innovations, like my camera hotkeys are to the right of my abilities with the control groups above and below. So like R, F, V are camera hotkeys, and then X is a control group. C used to be as well. It was for the mothership port, but that got stolen by the shield battery, so it's not a control group anymore. And then I also have some unique modifiers with the way I use Alt and Shift and Control. It's a little bit complicated.
So they say that you don't expand. Is that true, that you don't expand? Why do you never expand?
Yeah, so I have three rules laid down by Wivren. One of them is never expand. And I'm well known for this because I have a shirt that says never expand, never surrender on it. And I have a Twitch emote that is a nexus with a line through it. And obviously the fact that I never expand. There are a couple exceptions, most notably if my nexus dies, because my opponent comes over across the map and kills it, I can rebuild it, of course, because it would be foolish to not. And I'm allowed to rebuild in a different spot. So sometimes killing my nexus is actually a misplay. The other exception is in tournaments, I tend to let my morals slip a little bit in the interest of winning the game.
All right. What differentiates you from other cannon rushers such as Turkey Dano or Florencio?
There are a lot of cannon rushers who have a very high rank, and similar to me, there are some cannon rushers who have a higher rank than me at various times. I think we've taken turns basically having the highest rank. The primary difference between us is somewhat stylistic in a lot of cases. I think my particular claim to fame is the fact that I get blind countered the most. I think it would not be a stretch to say there is not a single StarCraft player who has been blind countered as often as me or as hard as me, because of the fact that I don't play under barcode and I always play under the same name. Turkey Dano doesn't barcode, but he has a lot of alt accounts, all named after anime characters. But if you know the pattern, you can recognize him. But there are a lot of people who don't, and he also doesn't cannon rush every single game. So even when he does get blind countered, it's generally to a lesser extent because they're afraid of losing a macro game to him, because he will just not cannon rush sometimes or transition out of it. Grim Reaper, of course, barcodes. Tripsail is a competent macro player and is willing to do that. I'm the one who gets blind countered the most, In my opinion, I think there's strong data to support this. So that's my particular unique situation. I think the best tip I can give somebody who wants to learn to Cannon Rush is, well, first off, just go actually play the game in Cannon Rush. That generally playing the game is one of the best ways to improve. Aside from that, obviously you can watch the experts and learn from them, at least to get a general sense of what the game is supposed to look like. Cannon Rush is very different at lower levels than it is at the highest levels, though. So if you're below masters, your games will look a lot different, and you'll have a very different priority set. The top Cannon Rushers are trying to eke out every single small advantage they can get, whereas at lower levels it's just about nailing the fundamentals. So make sure your probes just don't die, and make sure you know where all the walls are on the map, and have some kind of idea of how to build a wall efficiently.
That's awesome. After a game, you enter. Actually, before I just want to cover, you always enter into your spreadsheet, right? Every time?
So I have a spreadsheet with all of my games in it, and it's actually evolved a little bit. I started a new one in Legacy of the Void, and I actually put my Heart of the Swarm spreadsheet on Reddit. And with Legacy of the Void, I improved the format a bit to make it more useful, because the first one I made, it wasn't designed very well in advance. So the new one, I have a whole bunch of information stored in each game, and this has a couple uses. The first is it makes it very easy to find replays where something specific happened. If I'm struggling against Nidus, I can just do a quick search and find 30 games I played against Nidus and see what time it tends to hit, and therefore I know what time I need to have defense ready for it. Another use is just having correlations in data. I can look at my build win rates, because the new Legacy of the Void spreadsheet, I have a number for each game that corresponds to a specific build that I did or how the game went, and so I can look at the win rates of each of those. A lot of the time it matches my intuition, but sometimes it's actually surprising. And when it's a close call as well, when my intuition's they're roughly the same, it's cool to see that one is 3% higher in win rate.
Tell me the time when you did Cannon Rushing and you made a great comeback.
Comebacks are something that I fully believe in. When I was ranking up to GM, initially still learning how to play, there was one particular game that everything just went wrong. It was disaster after disaster after disaster. My Cannon Rush got shut down. This was before I had the no expand rule, so I went into built a ninja base in the corner of the map, and I put all of my tech there, and it got found right as the tech was coming online, and that all died. And I just restarted off my main base. I put 2 Colossi and just went, and I actually managed to win because the Zerg was greedily teching up mutas and had 2k in the bank for mutas, and I hit right as the Spire was 3/4 done, and I managed to kill everything before the mutas came out. And ever since then, I just don't leave games. I truly believe in the comeback. I tend to phrase comebacks more as my opponent throwing than myself winning, because if you're ahead, you shouldn't lose. But this is a really hard game, and everybody makes mistakes, so there's always a chance of a comeback.
How does Cannon Rushing differ from ladder to tournament?
I am a much stronger player in tournaments than I am on ladder. Ask anyone I've played in a tournament, and they'll agree with this. For myself specifically, I'm stylistically different on ladder versus tournaments. But Cannon Rushing in itself also helps in tournaments, because tournaments are a lot more stressful than ladder. And Cannon Rushing is the kind of play style that benefits from your opponent being stressed out, because it's all about punishing their mistakes. You look for their mistakes, and to some extent you're also forcing their mistakes. You're not just passively looking for them, but the point is to capitalize on the opponent's mistakes, and they make them more often when they're in a stressful tournament situation. From a personal stylistic perspective, I also play a lot differently in tournaments, because on ladder I'm always looking to improve, so I usually don't do what I think is the best way to win. I do what I haven't done before, so I can get the most information from that. Whereas in tournaments, I'm going all out, trying my best to win. I also, in tournaments, react and adapt to my opponent, whereas on ladder, I treat every game in isolation for the most part. So, as a very well-known player who does the same thing roughly every game, my opponents go into a series knowing a lot about me. As the series progresses, I learn more about them, but they don't really learn anything more about me. So I'm stronger in a longer series, which is the exact opposite of most people's intuition about a cannon rusher.
Wow, that is, you give really good interview answers. Do you know that? I don't know. I want to tell you that, but like I've interviewed, like gone through many players and you give a really good answer. I'm just going to say that. What's the hardest thing to pull off when trying to do a successful cannon rush?
The most difficult part of a cannon rush obviously depends on matchup, and to some extent the map as well. Yeah, I would also say it varies by league. There's a few specific skill sets though that I can touch on. The first is just your probe control, making sure that you're good at generating space between your probe and the workers that are chasing you, being able to throw down buildings quickly and have your probe and exit the building in the correct direction. So like if you want your probe to build a pylon and move away from it to the left, that kind of thing. Just keeping your probes constantly moving so that they don't go idle and die. Having them in the correct place at the correct time, like right as your pylon's finishing, have it arrive to finish the wall and build a cannon. All that kind of probe control stuff is one category. And then another category of skill is, which is more important against Zerg than the other two races, is the transition, the follow-up. So that comes down, that plays out somewhat similarly to just kind of doing an all-in, because you need to be getting your tech and everything as quickly as possible, and spending your money, the kind of skills that macro players talk about. But it plays out through a very different dynamic because of the fact that you're in such close proximity to the opponent, and you kind of both don't have the ability to attack, like do a full out attack. A lot of all-ins are one big push and try to kill the opponent. With a cannon rush transition, they can't attack into you because you have cannons there, and you can't just walk up and kill them because you spend a lot of money in cannons, their army is bigger. So it becomes a kind of war of attrition, and an important skill set there is microing really well to get the most out of your units, fighting whenever it's advantageous to you.
If you liked that video, and I mean if you really liked that video, let us know. Hit the like button, drop us a comment. After that, check out another video just like it.